Welcome back to the morning Trinidad and Tobago. We continue discussing the troubling issue of one parent moving with a child without the proper consent of the other parent. And we're talking with Rondell Fields, founder of the Single Fathers Association. Via Skype, we have Joel Zuckerman. He is the attorney for Mr. Hunkovich, who has been pursuing his legal rights for 6 years. Hello, good morning, Joel. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about the situation, thanks.
Well, as some may be aware, Miss Leah Hunkovich was married to Stan Hunkovich in the United States, and they had 2 children, Gabriel and Anastasia. And in February of 2010, when the children were just infants, the mother, Miss Hunkovich, left the United States overnight after promising that she would not leave the country. After there was an order entered that prevented her from leaving the country, she flew out of the United States from New York City to Trinidad and Tobago in the port of Spain, and she has been there ever since. She left without Mr. Hunkovich's consent, and when she promised the judge through her lawyer that she would not be leaving the country and that she would be available to appear in court in the United States, at that time, she had already had the travel documents issued by the Embassy of Trinidad and Tobago, and she already had her plane tickets. So she essentially lied to the court, told the court that she was not leaving, promised that she would be in court at the next hearing, which was scheduled for a few weeks later, and was able to leave the country. And she's been there ever since. And Mr. Hunkovich has not seen his children since November of 2011. And the last time he was able to speak with his children on the phone was in December of 2013. And he's fighting to get them back ever since.
Okay, and we continue, but what's your thoughts on this, Rondell?
Well, it's exactly what we've been saying. I mean, we've been seeing children being removed from one jurisdiction to another, and that's very troubling without consent of the other party. As I said, it doesn't really happen from the U.S. to Trinidad. It happens from Trinidad to the U.S. It happens from Trinidad particularly to places that aren't signed under the Hague Convention. We being signed under the Hague Convention, you'd expect better from us. I mean, internationally, it's expected that. I mean, we show more concern than we're showing right now. And it's an issue that I think particularly, as I said, we've written over a year about this issue to the AG's office, to the Minister of National Security, particularly with these documents, these emergency travel certificates, where I'm seeing a lot of Trinidadian children being removed from the jurisdiction and going off to Guyana and other nations, where the father now is need to get into the country and start domestic proceedings there. So if he can't afford it, then he just lost his child. He has the child's passport in his hand, but the child is gone. And I think it's time, for the Foreign Affairs as well, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to really, pull on these embassies and let's really find out what is required to issuance of one of these documents, for one of these documents to be issued.
Okay, Joel, I want you to chime in, please. What do you think is the first thing that needs to be done to resolve the situation in the speediest manner? Because it's been 6 years thus far.
Well, if I can go back just first to what Mr. Fields just said, what he's describing is exactly what happened in this case. Ms. Hunkovich was somehow able to convince the embassy staff that there was some kind of emergency that required her to leave the country. Nobody attempted to contact Mr. Hunkovich. Nobody, as far as we can tell, or if they did, they ignored it. If they even attempted to find out if there was any court orders in place, all of our court proceedings are available online on the internet. So it is very easy for someone to simply get onto the internet and see what's happening in just about any Maryland court proceeding that's going on in the state courts. And then if somebody had done that search, which would take about 5 minutes, if even that long, they would have seen that there was a court proceeding that was ongoing, that was actually initiated by Ms. Hunkovich. And under those circumstances, it really is shocking that nobody attempted to reach out to Mr. Hunkovich to try to find out what's going on, or at least try to call the court, or at least call the lawyers, whose telephone numbers are all available online in the and listed in the actual case docket that's shown on the computer. And our State Department, when they reviewed when they were looking into this for Mr. Hunkovic, we have seen emails where they have called this conduct collusion between the airlines, between the parents that are taking these children, and between the government of Trinidad. That's the only way to really understand, to explain it. How else could you issue an emergency travel certificate when there is no emergency, when there is no basis for doing so? So the problem that Mr. Fields is describing is not new. It's been going on for several years. And while I'm only familiar with Mr. Hunkovic's case through my conversations with Mr. Fields, this has been going on this is still going on, and it doesn't appear that it's been remedied. As for what we're looking to happen now, I can tell you that Ms. Hunkovic has been indicted on parental child abduction charges in Maryland. And she was indicted by a grand jury in Baltimore County. It was done at the request of the Baltimore County Attorney General, and at the request of the Baltimore County Attorney General's office, they asked the Department of Justice of the United States to initiate extradition proceedings. And after more than a year of examining and of closely looking at this case as to whether or not extradition was appropriate, in the spring of this year, after looking at it for more than a year and deciding if it's appropriate, the Department of Justice indeed determined that this is an appropriate case for extradition. And the extradition papers have been transmitted as of May 17th, if not sooner, but as of May 17th, we received confirmation that the extradition request has been delivered to the Attorney General office in Trinidad and Tobago. And as far as we know, there has been no action taken. Mr. Hunkovic's congressman, Dutch Ruppersberger, wrote a letter to the embassy of Trinidad and Tobago in Washington, D.C., asking for updates as to what's happening, and he has not received a response. Mr. Hunkovic's senator, on behalf of the United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is comprised of 18 United States senators, wrote a letter to the embassy of Trinidad and Tobago asking that for any updates, as well as prompt action to begin the extradition process so that Ms. Hunkovic can stand trial in the United States for the crimes that she is alleged to have been committed.
All right, now, Gerard, one moment, please. We are about 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes away from you.
Okay.
We've actually gotten permission to go over the hour to continue the discussion. But before we speak about the ramifications of actually having the extradition proceedings start at least in May, and not really having anything else to go on, basically having radio silence, before I ask you to speak to that, I just want to ask you your thoughts on that, Mr. Fields, whether or not that you find that you are firm by that decision, that this is grounds for extradition.
Well, I mean, it's something that the entire world is going this way. Parental kidnapping is not something that are taken, lightly. In Trinidad and Tobago, we seem not to be concerned. And hence, the reason I'm saying that the AG office needs to show concern, and not only the AG office, the Ministry of National Security. This needs to be a discussion that needs to be had. Parliament needs to have discussion on this new issue parental kidnapping. I think they passed a family bill very recently. I didn't even hear any debate or any mention of this very serious topic. You see the level that they're going at the United States, and that's one of the reasons why we try to become involved, because it looks bad on our nation, particularly that two senators, U.S. congressmen are writing our embassy saying that, hey, you all are harboring children. And it's happening to our children as well in other nations. And I admire the U.S. for coming behind this issue. Why aren't we going behind issues where our children have been carried to other jurisdictions? So it shows, I don't know if it's a lack of concern. It is a lack of concern, I should boldly say. But we need to step up. Our AG departments need to step up. I hope the minister, I hope the AG is currently watching. And I would like to have meetings done urgently. Look how far this has reached. This has reached very far.
And we actually, once again, you mentioned it, but I have a copy of the letter that you sent to the AG September 2015.
Exactly. It's over a year now.
But we will continue this conversation. We are here on Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago, speaking with Rondell Fields of the Single Fathers Association, as well as the attorney for Mr. Hunkovic, Mr. Joel Zuckerman. Stay tuned. We have so much more. Roger's up next with the news to 7 o'clock. Joel Zuckerman and Rondell Fields. Now, Joel, I want to ask about the weight of those letters that have been written from the U.S. to Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, I think that the letters express, on behalf of members of the U.S. Congress, the concern that they have that these children have been abducted, and the fact that there has been that an attorney general in the state of Maryland has determined that a criminal act has occurred with respect to the abduction of these children and removal from the United States. And parental child kidnapping is a very serious offense, and it has long-lasting ramifications on not only the parents but the children. I mean, the children suffer for the rest of their lives, and these letters represent the great concern that our members of Congress have that these crimes are being committed, and they want the people who are committing these crimes to stand trial. This is a way of setting an example, of demonstrating that we are taking this seriously, and that hopefully in the future that the parents who may decide to commit this crime, they'll think twice. I mean, prosecution of crimes, obviously one main reason is to punish the offender, but also is to serve as an example, to make it a deterrent, so that people don't do it in the future. And parental child kidnapping is something that is becoming more and more common with the ease in which people are able to move about the world. And as Rondell pointed out, the concerns about child trafficking, and it's a very serious offense. And these letters represent the seriousness in which our government has taken this crime, and they want to see prosecutions going forward. And it's something that our government has really not done that much in the past. And in fact, I can't think of one other case that comes to mind where an extradition request has actually been served on a foreign country for a crime like this. So I think that these letters emphasize the importance and the critical nature of the crimes that have been committed.
It seems as though you're literally looking for a figurative head on a stake right about now to set an example going forward. But I wanted to speak about the Goldman Act, but before we do that, you touched on the point of not just having the adults in the situation, in the scenario, also concerning the child. And I'm wondering, what does that mean for the child, especially since at this point the child may or may not be an adult?
I mean, if I got what you said correctly, the child most of the times, they just have to do what the parent says, so the parent is moving, they'll just go, but sometimes are really infringing on the rights of the child, so to speak. The child has another parent, they have extended family, they have schoolmates, they have friends on that side, and now you carry them to a new jurisdiction where they may have some family there. Yes, they may not be too familiar with the family as yet, and you're going to cause them now to have a totally new experience. I've had videos, I mean, apart from Mrs. Zuckerman's client, where a dad posted on a group of him speaking to his daughter, and she's saying, "Daddy, when you're coming for me? Daddy, when you're coming for me?" And this child is in Trinidad right now. She wants to come home, and she's sad, and these were things that have been on social media. The father has been on social media posting these stuff, trying to find a way to get his child back to the United States. So, I mean, Mrs. Zuckerman's client's case is one case, but there are cases of more U.S. citizens that are down here, cases of Trinidadian citizens that are in other jurisdictions. And I would like to hear Joel speak a little bit about the Goldman Act, because I think that's something that can be introduced here. I mean, to get our government to really act into going out and getting our kids back. And I mean, I commend the U.S. for the efforts that they're making. I commend the father, because I am pretty sure this is an expensive, thing that he's doing, that he has on his chest there. And I mean, not only that, the emotional toll on him as well. I mean, that's critical, not seeing your children for that amount of time. That's heartbreaking. And I must commend Joel as well for sticking by him as an attorney. It's very rare to see attorneys who are among that passion and desire to really help their client. So I must commend them. And in the US, it's something that we should duplicate in Trinidad and Tobago.
Speaking of duplicating, Joel, can you speak to us about the Goldman Act? Thank you.
Yes, I can. The Goldman Act is a statute in the United States that was recently passed in response to the child that was taken from from the United States to Brazil, and it took several years for the father to get the child back. And the Goldman Act essentially is a law that requires the State Department to set up procedures to ensure compliance with the Hague Convention with other Hague Convention member states, so that our State Department is to report on how other countries that we are in partnership with are complying with the Goldman Act, and also to set up bilateral procedures with other countries that are not yet part of the part of the Hague Convention, so that can ensure the return of children even in the absence of a signature, when a country is not a signatory to the Hague Convention. And one other thing I want to touch on with respect to what Mr. Fields just said and the effect on the children. Ms. Hunkovic is not even following the orders of the Trinidadian courts. She's been ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation by the court as of December 18th, 2015. She is not doing that. She was ordered to bring the children for speech and language services and speech and language testing. She's not doing that. She was ordered to bring the boy for a hearing test. She is not doing that. She was ordered to allow the children to have phone contact with their father under the supervision of social workers that are employed by the family court in Trinidad. She is not doing that. So when we speak of the effect on the children, not only the emotional effect, but this court is so concerned about the mother's fitness that this judge, Justice Lambert Peterson, has made these children wards of court until they are 18, so that the court can continue to oversee how Ms. Hunkovic is raising these children. And she is not complying with those orders. And not only the emotional toll that this has taken on these children, the fact that they don't know their father, they don't know their culture in the United States, we don't know how these children are doing. We've been trying to get a welfare check from our United States Embassy in Trinidad. Ms. Hunkovic has refused to comply with that. We have tried to get a welfare check through the International Social Services Agency, which is an organization that works internationally and provides home visits for foreign courts, and it's based in the United States. And Ms. Hunkovic has refused to cooperate. So we are not talking about somebody who who we believe is caring for these children or is obedient even to the orders in Trinidad. So she is, I'm not familiar with the laws in Trinidad and whether or not she would be liable criminally, but certainly she is ignoring the orders of the family court, and these children are, as far as we are concerned, they are in danger.
And hopefully this is a conversation that we can continue having and continue highlighting, because this is something that needs to be spoken about and brought to the fore. But we want to thank you so much, Joel Zuckerman, attorney for Mr. Hunkovic, as well as Mr. Rondell Fields, the Single Fathers Association. And as possible, we will try to continue and keep this conversation on the front burner, because it is a conversation that needs to be had. So I want to thank both of you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. We are going to be speaking about the cutting edge when we return. Stay tuned. Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago continues after this.